The line split in half and they started rushing me, yelling, "Give the camera! Give the camera!" I was like, I'm gonna be shot. I've never been so scared in my entire life. I was shaking for like 2 days after this. They were using rubber bullets when they shot into people, but they were just kind of trying to almost like disperse the crowd and scare the crap out of people and push them over the bridge. So they were shooting live ammunition into the air, and I like you could just hear the gunshots. You couldn't really see like what they were doing. I noticed that in these train cars that were full of men were political prisoners. You could see political prisoners who were standing in the back, gagged and cuffed. Mubarak has been president of Egypt for the past 30 years, which is actually in a longer reign than the dictator that was just ousted from Tunisia. Under Mubarak's rule, Egypt has stagnated in many different ways. Online bloggers were calling for protests on Tuesday, January 25th, because it is a national holiday. The national holiday was celebrating the police. So the protesters picked this day because many Egyptians would not have to attend work on that Tuesday, but also because the police are largely seen as the security apparatus that insulates Mubarak and his corruption from accountability to the public. It was very deliberate to have the protests begin on Tuesday. In Egypt, there are pictures of Mubarak everywhere. And so every time that the protesters passed these pictures of Mubarak, they would start shouting and throwing things at the picture. As the protest proceeded through the town, many people came out to watch, and many people started joining in, which was something that was really remarkable to see. Some of the chanting that they were chanting were things against Mubarak, shouting, "Enough, Mubarak, enough," or "Leave Mubarak," or "Gamal, tell your father we hate him," just all of these antagonistic things against Mubarak. Then they also started chanting something that I thought was beautiful. They were chanting, "Where are the people of Egypt? Come out, people of Egypt." That was the translation of what they were chanting most of the time. So people started joining in. Most of the protesters with whom I spoke were of lower middle class and middle class background. Many of the protesters have degrees from Egyptian universities, even advanced degrees in engineering and computer science, and are unable to find jobs, which is one of the huge sources for support for these protests. Many of the people mentioned that they could not get married because they could not afford basically the dowry, and they could not afford a flat, and that they did not have jobs. So it affects the family life as well. Rami, a 35-year-old man who works in a government factory, said that he was at the protest because he can't stand living in a closed system, and he can't marry anyone because he is impoverished. He has an engineering degree and still makes a minimum wage at the government's factory, and also has to work as a taxi cab driver to make additional money. After living in Cairo for 5 months in 2009, I found the number of women to be shocking, actually. And in fact, some women were actually leading the chants against Mubarak, chanting, "Enough, Mubarak, enough, time to leave Mubarak," in Arabic. And men were responding to their chants. I thought that was something that I found unexpected in Cairo. All of these different events, from the Palestine Papers to the Tunisian Revolution to the Hezbollah appointment to Prime Minister in Lebanon, all of these things together really fuel each other and build the energy of the people in this region who have suffered under very stagnating, oppressive societies for decades. So you can feel the energy in all of these just different events almost complement each other and support each other. Several of the protesters with whom I spoke said that they never thought that in their lifetimes they would see this hope for Egypt.